In a historic moment, white smoke rises from the Sistine Chapel, heralding Pope Leo XIV, America's first pontiff. Is this the fulfillment of St. Malachi's ancient prophecy of Petrus Romanus? As Robert Francis Prevost steps into this pivotal role, the Catholic Church faces a turning point. Will his leadership reshape faith in an era of awakening? Join us to explore this transformative journey. People around the world, especially the 1.4 billion Catholics, are closely watching the chimney atop the Sistine Chapel in Rome, awaiting a momentous occasion. When white smoke rises from this chimney, countless individuals erupt in cheers as it signals that the College of Cardinals of the Roman Catholic Church has elected a new pope. When white smoke emerged from the Sistine Chapel's chimney, the 133 cardinals, through a secret ballot, elected their new pope, Robert Francis Prevost. The new pope chose the name Leo XIV. Pope Leo XIV. Robert Francis Prevost is the first pope in history from the United States. He was born in Chicago to Louis Marius Prevost, a school superintendent of French and Italian descent, and Mildred Martinez, a librarian of Spanish descent. Raised in Dalton, a southern suburb of Chicago, Prevost grew up in a devout Catholic family. Prevost earned a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Villanova University, a master's degree in theology from the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago, and both a licentiate and doctorate in canon law from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, Angelicum, in Rome. His doctoral dissertation explored the role of local superiors in the Augustinian order. In 1985, Prevost joined the Augustinian order in Peru, becoming a member of a religious order inspired by St. Augustine, which seeks a balance between love and learning. At the age of 30, Prevost began working in Peru, where he served until 1999. During his early years in Peru, Prevost held multiple roles, teaching at a diocesan seminary, serving as a judge in an ecclesiastical court, and leading a parish in the suburbs of Trujillo. In 1999, Prevost was elected head of the Augustinian Order's Chicago province. In 2001, he was appointed the Global Prior General of the Augustinian Order, a position he held until 2013. During this time, he was based in Rome, but spent much of his time traveling, visiting the order's communities in nearly 50 countries worldwide. In 2014, Pope Francis appointed him Bishop of Chiclayo in northern Peru, where he served until 2023, when Pope Francis called him back to Rome to serve full-time in the Roman Curia. In Rome, Prevost became known for his diligence, dedicating significant time to identifying new bishops while also addressing internal church issues. Prevost's experience in pastoral work in marginalized regions, combined with his adeptness in handling the complexities of central church governance, made him a rare candidate. For those seeking a potential pope who shared Pope Francis's priorities while placing greater emphasis on governance, Prevost was an ideal fit. One of Prevost's strengths is his fluency in multiple languages. He speaks English, Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese, and can read Latin and German. This linguistic ability allowed him to communicate with other cardinals in ways many others could not. Despite his linguistic proficiency, Prevost is not loquacious. He speaks cautiously and thoughtfully. Humble and reserved, his firm determination and clear thinking may provide reassurance to those seeking a leader with a defined purpose and a clear path to achieve it. Even if some cardinals were reluctant to vote for an American, these qualities elevated his standing in the election. Unlike his predecessor Pope Francis, Prevost belongs to the Ordo Sancti Augustini, OSA, an ancient mendicant order founded in 1244 in the Tuscany region of Italy. The order follows the Rule of St. Augustine, written by St. Augustine of Hippo, the author of Confessions, in the 5th century. The rule emphasizes communal living, spiritual reflection, and service to others. Augustinian friars typically live simply, focusing on prayer, penance, humility, and love as the foundation of their Christian witness. According to America, a Jesuit magazine, 34 of the 266 popes in history have belonged to religious orders, and 6 of them before Leo XIV were Augustinians. Prevost is widely regarded as a moderate within the Vatican. He aligns with Pope Francis on issues such as inclusive church governance and dialogue, closeness to the poor, immigrants and marginalized groups, environmental concerns, evangelization in peripheral regions, and allowing divorced and civilly remarried Catholics to receive the Eucharist. However, he takes a cautious stance on women's ordination and on Fiducia Supplicans, the document concerning blessings for same-sex couples, showing a divergence from Francis on these matters. Pope Francis, the first pope from the Society of Jesus, Jesuits, faced criticism in history for the Jesuits' political involvement in colonial regions or European courts, with some labeling them as too worldly or a power center. Today, some Jesuit priests, due to their support for liberation theology or progressive theology, are in sharp conflict with conservative factions. Francis was also the first non-European-born pope in modern times, hailing from Buenos Aires, Argentina. He was the first pope to reside outside the Vatican's apostolic palace, choosing instead to live in the Domus Sanctae Marthae. He was the first pope to openly support civil unions for same-sex couples, the first to wear white rather than the traditional red vestments upon his election, and the first to refuse burial in St. Peter's Basilica, or the traditional papal necropolis after his death. He chose to be buried in Rome's Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. To many conservative Catholics, Francis was a radical outlier, accused of promoting extreme feminism, prioritizing black issues, advocating for extreme environmentalism, and even favoring Islam, thereby pushing Europe toward an extreme left-wing path. There are currently 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide, with 50 million in the United States, including U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, both devout Catholics. For conservative Catholics, their true faith and devotion lie in God and truth, not in the forms of religion or specific religious figures. Following the election of the new pope, President Trump was quick to offer his congratulations.
But again, to have the pope from the United States of America, that's a great honor.
Original audio, Secretary of State Rubio posted, Habemus Papam. Congratulations to the first American pontiff, His Holiness Pope Leo XIV, on his election as the 267th successor to St. Peter. May God grant him wisdom, courage, and grace as he carries out his sacred ministry, Vice President J.D. Vance also wrote, Congratulations to Leo XIV, the first American pope, on his election. I'm sure millions of American Catholics and other Christians will pray for his successful work leading the church. May God bless him. President Trump also posted on the White House's official X account, Congratulations to Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was just named Pope. It is such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement and what a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo XIV. It will be a very meaningful moment. President Trump's comment about the moment being very meaningful likely relates to the famous prophecy of St. Malachi. This document, allegedly written by St. Malachi, the 12th century Archbishop of Armagh in Ireland, prophesies the 112 popes from Pope Celestine II in 1143 until the Last Judgment. The prophecy describes each pope's characteristics, background, or related symbols through 112 Latin phrases, rather than specific names. It includes its origins, content, controversies, and the final Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman. The 112th and final pope in the prophecy is described as Petrus Romanus. The original Latin text reads, In persecutione extrema sre sedebit, Petrus Romanus, qui pacet ues in multis tribulationibus, quibus transactis ciuitas septicolis diruetur, ampti, iudex tremendus judicabit populum suum, finis. Many believe that Pope Francis, elected in 2013 as the 266th Pope, was the Petrus Romanus for the following reasons. Italian heritage, Francis, originally Jorge Mario Bergoglio, is Argentinian, but his father was an Italian immigrant, fitting a broader interpretation of Roman. Peter's symbolism. Francis chose his name to honor Saint Francis of Assisi, whose full name was Francesco di Pietro di Bernardone, Pietro meaning Peter. Additionally, as Pope, Francis inherits the duties of Peter, considered the first pope, persecution and tribulation. The prophecy mentions extreme persecution and many tribulations. During Francis's tenure, the church faced internal reform controversies, sex abuse scandals, and global religious conflicts, which some interpret as the prophesied tribulations. Destruction of the seven-hilled city. The seven-hilled city refers to Rome, and the prophecy suggests its destruction and the last judgment. Supporters argue this could symbolize the decline of the church or the arrival of the end times. In Catholic theology, the Last Judgment is part of eschatology, closely tied to the second coming of Christ, the resurrection of the dead, and the end of the world. Catholic doctrine holds that the Last Judgment is the ultimate manifestation of God's justice and mercy, reflecting his respect for human free will and the judgment of good and evil. The basis for judgment includes whether one accepts God's salvation, lives out their faith through love, responds to God's grace, and repents of sins. After judgment, souls are divided into two groups. The righteous will enter the new heaven and new earth, sharing eternal happiness with God, while sinners will be condemned to the lake of fire, or hell, facing eternal punishment. Malachi's prophecy links Petrus Romanus to the Last Judgment, suggesting that the final pope will lead the church through tribulations until the destruction of Rome and the arrival of the judgment. The French seer Nostradamus, in his Les Prophéties, the Prophecies, similarly predicts future events through cryptic quatrains, often involving disasters, wars, and papal persecution, and is frequently associated with the Last Judgment and Malachi's Petrus Romanus. Interestingly, the renowned British psychic Craig Hamilton Parker accurately predicted the passing of Pope Francis in a prophecy released on February 25, 2025.
But those of you that follow this channel will know that I've already spoken about the Pope before. In my predictions that I made for 2025, you'll remember that I predicted that we would have a new Pope in 2025.
He also stated, the role of the future pope will change. This may be related to St. Malachi's prophecy, which ends with the 112th pope, as I feel the role of the papacy will transform. I see the Catholic Church undergoing a complete transformation, focusing more on the idea that God is love, rather than the fear of hell. This idea will be abandoned, seen as a misunderstanding of ancient doctrines and a misinterpretation of the fact that all life will enter heaven. All life has the capacity to love, to shed its sins, just as their negative karma can be released. All life has the potential to become enlightened beings, a teaching shared by many other religions around the world.
The last pope being the last pope of that kind. And that there will be a vision, I see, of a future leader coming from the East that will transform the world. And a new form of Christian spirituality also will emerge, which would would blend Eastern and Western mysticism together, and would draw upon its own mystical heritage, which is kind of rejected in many ways.
Perhaps it's no coincidence that on the evening of February 12th this year, Parker attended a spectacular performance by the US-based Shen Yun Performing Arts at the Pavilion Theatre in Bournemouth, UK, an event aimed at showcasing traditional Chinese culture. He remarked with some surprise,
I had a dream about this whole show years ago, which I mentioned on my channel.
He further stated, we are now in an era of increasing individual awakening. More and more people around the world, through their own unique paths, like different flowers, are awakening. I believe this is a very important moment for humanity right now. What Shen Yun is doing is a significant part of this process. I feel we are standing on the threshold of a new era. I'd like to say, when the great era of enlightenment arrives, it won't come as a blinding flash of light. It will be made up of small lights igniting one by one across the world. This performance is one of those lights, illuminating many people. I'd say it's an absolutely magnificent display. It's not just art, it's spiritual. Perhaps the emergence of the first American Pope is also a significant part of this process. Can't wait for even more awesome moments to come. Welcome your comments and unique opinions or suggestions. Thanks for you watching. We'll see you next time.